Jamie Raskin, a Democrat socialist from Maryland, is the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Jim Comer's committee, that's riding point on the Biden Inc. investigation. Jamie Raskin is to Jim Comer what Adam Schiff was to Devin Nunes on House Intel when Republicans were in charge of the House Intel Committee, when they had the majority, I should say, and Devin Nunes was chairman of House Intel during the outset of the Russian collusion hoax. Jamie Raskin is a Harvard Law grad. He was the editor of the Harvard Law Review, so be prepared to be impressed
by his brilliance, yes.
When you hear this response to Fredo Cuomo's question about Biden, the big guy, responding to questions surrounding the business dealings of his family, particularly in the wake of the testimony last week from Devon Archer. Here's Raskin's response to the forthrightness of said big guy.
The party doesn't seem to be pushing the president to me to answer these questions. Why do they have to be a matter of criminal investigation? Why can't he just be candid about what's true and what's not true, especially if he's got nothing to hide?
I feel like President Biden has been very open and candid and honest about Hunter Biden's drug addiction and a lot of the terrible things that he did laboring under the drug addiction. I mean, what family in America has not been touched by alcohol or drug abuse? And we know that people do really deranged things in that situation. I think they've been very honest and open about it, but there's nothing else there. I mean, the Republicans haven't found anything else there. If there were, I'd be very happy to ask questions about it. But
well, the payments to the family members.
Well, what does that mean? The payments to the family members? As far as I know, Hunter Biden made a bunch of business deals, which is lawful, which a lot of family members have done, Republican, Democrat, other political families, they've done the same thing. And he had it, the money diverted into different funds. I don't know there's an allegation of any crime there. But what is the crime that's being asserted? Hunter Biden was obviously trying to divert the different kinds of money that he had coming in. That's my best understanding of that situation. Again, none of it.
Yeah, the question I would ask Raskin is, if a Ukrainian oligarch had said to an FBI asset that President Trump and Don Jr. both accepted $5 million bribes from me to use their influence on behalf of my company, would Jamie Raskin have the same response? Would he have any questions about that? Would that be interesting at all to him, do you think?
Yeah, they'd be all over this. Come on.
For more on this and other matters, particularly in the light of speaking of Harvard, the Harvard admissions case, Professor William Jacobson joins us, clinical professor of law and director of security law, the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law School, founder of legalinsurrection.com, president of the Legal Insurrection Foundation, and also under this umbrella is the Equal Protection Project, which we want to talk about. Professor Jacobson, thanks for joining us again. I know you're Cornell, not Harvard, but what's your reaction to Jamie Raskin, officer of the court, his analysis of what we know so far from the investigation into the Biden family?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. Actually, I do have a little bit of Harvard in me, but don't hold it against me because I went to Harvard Law School.
Oh, you did?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, well, okay.
Well, we stand corrected.
Were you Harvard Law Review?
But you can like me anyway.
Was it a Harvard Law Review?
International Law Review.
All right. I still think Jamie Raskin has you trumped on credentials, but
you know what? You don't need credentials to know that, he is just speaking out of both sides of his mouth. I mean, if the Trump children were cutting deals from the airplane or on presidential trips that they accompanied their father on, we'd have multiple special counsel, multiple investigations, multiple committees. The world would have gone wild, at least the media world. But because it's Hunter Biden cutting deals when he's on trips with his father and putting his father on the phone, according to Devon Archer, at least 20 times with his business associate, There's silence from the media. Oh, nothing there, nothing to see. I mean, this is so. What they've done to our system is so horrible that they have essentially immunized the Biden family corruption, and that's what it was. Whether it was a crime or not, we probably need to know more. But it certainly was selling the office of the vice presidency, selling influence, and peddling that to foreign governments or people affiliated with foreign governments, one of which, China, is one of our primary, if not our primary, competitors in the world. So Joe Biden sold us out. His son sold us out. They did it, blatantly. And all the media and people like Jamie Raskin want to say is, oh, there's nothing here. Where's your proof? How can you prove? Well, it's right in front of our eyes. He was putting it on the phone to give Hunter Biden the selling point of I can get the vice president on the phone.
Well, no, you're all wrong. According to Congressman Dan Goldman, they were just talking about the weather as just pleasantries. And, why wouldn't a president or a man say hello to his son's friends?
Yeah, well, the point is that was what Hunter Biden was selling, was the ability to get his father on the phone. And we're supposed to believe his father didn't know what was going on. Why is he putting him on the phone, with business associates? Why is this happening? What Hunter Biden was selling was access to the vice president of the United States. It wasn't a specific conversation. It wasn't a change in policy. It wasn't any of those things. And Joe Biden has to have known it. And he has to have known about all the money flowing to family members. So this is, a ruse to say, well, they just talked about the weather. It was like nod, nod, wink, wink. That's how Hunter Biden was selling whatever it was he was selling. It certainly wasn't legal services like they claimed, because he didn't do any law work for anybody, at least not in that context.
On the other side, Trump, we have one indictment to go. That's Fulton County, Georgia. And the prosecutor there, the reporting suggests, and previous statements she's made suggests, that she's going to charge Trump under the state's RICO, or racketeering statute. What's your reaction to trying to make out a racketeering case against Trump in Georgia based on his, I guess, I don't know what else it would be based on his phone call with Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State?
Yeah, well, we don't know what evidence she claims, but if they're going for a state-level racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations act claim, it's a complete, criminalization of politics, because you can probably make those sort of arguments against most politicians. Now, the difference is, just so people understand, the federal statute is much more limited. You have to have certain predicate acts, and they're the sort of predicate acts for the federal statute you would expect, because that statute was geared towards mob bosses. Kidnapping, murder, extortion, things like that. But apparently the state version of that in Georgia is broader, and it includes things like false statements and things like that. So she's going to take a novel interpretation or a novel extension to politicians, that politicians making false statements for some corrupt purpose, and I guess she would say the corrupt purpose was to overturn the election, is all of a sudden criminal. But that could be applied to so many politicians. It could be applied to Hillary Clinton for her statements post-2016. Could be applied to, Stacey Abrams for her statements about how she really won the governorship in Georgia. I don't see Stacey Abrams being indicted. So this is completely abusive. These are Democrat prosecutors trying to criminalize the political opposition.
Yeah, and political speech. And this is a pattern that is getting actually quite chilling. We have a governor here in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, as you know. A law that he signed that was passed by our General Assembly that would punish pregnancy care centers for what they term were deceptive practices, meaning reaching out to pregnant women or bringing pregnant women in and saying, we have these resources, you don't have to get an abortion. If you want to have your child, we can help you, and so on and so forth. So-called deceptive practices, specifically targeting them. And his statement, a statement he made in an interview, was this, quote, "You have a right to free speech, but you don't have a right to lie." That was a categorical statement he made. No, he's Georgetown law? Anyway, officer of the court. I mean, so beyond criminalizing politics, this is criminalizing disagreement. This is where the
Right.
left is, and it's not just with respect to Trump. Pritzker's another example of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a massive problem that has been building over a number of years, which is the criminalization of politics. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, if the Democrats do this, they're putting themselves at risk because when the Republicans get in power, they'll do the same thing. The answer is no, they don't. They never do. They never have. They never will. Democrats can get away with this because they know there will never be the sort of retribution. Instead, Republicans will get people saying, no, this isn't right. We have to do the right thing here. We can't do this. We can't destroy the law for political purposes. But the Democrats do it all the time, and we really are on the verge, and we're probably there in a number of blue states, including Illinois, where, you know, to be in the political opposition is being defined as a crime, is being defined as punishable, and is being defined, you know, that you're in any of the state. And we're there in some blue states. You know, New York State's not much better. And, you know, so it's really a dangerous situation. And it's not, you know, hyperbole to say when you see what's going on in Georgia, in Manhattan, in D.C. with, you know, Smith, the prosecutor, who has asserted against Trump, you know, four very questionable legal theories for his liability. You know, you can disagree completely, and I did, with what, you know, the attempts to overturn the election, but that doesn't make them criminal, unless you're going to put Stacey Abrams and Hillary Clinton in jail.
Right. Do you think there's any chance he'd get a fair trial anywhere? I mean, possibly the documents case in Miami?
Well, you know, a legally fair trial, one that would not get reversed because it's unfair, probably. A, you know, legitimately fair trial when you're Donald Trump, you know, it's going to be tough. You know, it's going to be very tough because he is such, you know, a polarizing figure. He has been so demonized for so long. I don't know how you're going to get a jury in the District of Columbia, which is 96% or something like that, Democrat registration, and which I think he got maybe 5% of the vote. How are you going to get a fair jury pool there? I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be very, very tough. His lawyers were suggesting moving it to West Virginia, which probably would make a lot of sense because West Virginia is, you know, a little bit Republican leaning, but it's actually a fairly politically diverse state if you look at the numbers. And I did the other night on this issue. I don't think Trump can get a fair jury pool in the District of Columbia or in Manhattan. He probably could in Florida, but that's not totally unusual. I mean, but it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge.
On other matters I wanted to get to, of course, the fallout from the Students for Fair Admissions Supreme Court decision, the Harvard admissions case, effectively. We see also at the state level, Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis moving to rein in racial identity politics on campuses. University of North Texas becoming the first college in the state of Texas to shut down its DI office, Diversity, Inclusion, Equity office. It had 21 full-time DEI employees.
What?
And
Oh
six part-time staffers who are undergrad and grad students. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And
what were they even doing?
This is a relatively small university there, the Mean Green. So North Texas is complying with state law, but we're also seeing the Wall Street Journal reporting that you have people now going after the DI officers and policies in corporate America. Comcast settling a case of illegally favoring minority-owned small business customers. Amazon's been sued over a program in Texas. Starbucks directors are being sued by a shareholder arguing they violated their duty to investors by supporting DI policies. Where do you see this all going, consistent with the Equal Protection Project that you operate?
Yeah, well, we have filed a number of complaints against universities regarding race-exclusive programs or racially discriminatory programs. We just filed one against the University of Nebraska at Lincoln about a program they have that is only open to black filmmakers. Universities can't do that anymore. There was a period of, it's always been illegal, but there was a period of time where based on Supreme Court decisions, you could make an argument that diversity was a sufficient motivation and justification for some level of discrimination. You can't make that anymore. So the Supreme Court's decision, while it was in the context of university admissions, constitutionally was much more sweeping than that. Basically, anybody subject to the constitutional restrictions and the federal restrictions, statutory, cannot use race as a basis for giving or denying benefits. And that's what's been happening. So you're going to see, because of the sweeping nature of that decision, you're going to see a lot more lawsuits brought against companies and other entities who maybe thought they were immune from this, but will not be. So this is the wave of the future. We're doing it at Equal Protection Project, which is equalprotect.org, and there are other groups who are doing it as well.
He is Professor William Jacobson, clinical professor of law and director of the Securities Law Clinic at Cornell Law, also founder of legalinsurrection.com, that's a must-read blog, and president of the Legal Insurrection Foundation. Professor Jacobson, thank you as always.
Thanks.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Experts are saying the biggest economic implosion is coming. Where's your money right now? In real estate? The stock market?